Welcome to this meeting. It's a meeting of the Joint Subcommittee to monitor the implementation of the West Kowloon Cultural District project. Please invite a representative from the administration and the WKCDA to join us. The names are already set out in the agenda. Welcome. Today we have two items on the agenda, and it will take us all the way to 1 p.m. Item number 1, update on the development of M+. The papers have been sent to members. So first of all, I'd like to invite the administration or WKCDA representative to walk us through the paper. They are going to use a PowerPoint presentation to introduce the subject. Mr. Lynch?
Members of the committee. Oh, something's gone wrong. There we are. Today, I think it's a really important part of us being able to make clear to the committee what an absolutely integral part M+ is of the West Kowloon Cultural District, and also very important in that it sits in the park end of the project, unaffected by any of the issues related to the railway or the basement. It will be one of the first venues open to the public, and it will be very important in terms of its relationship to the broad audience. We've made some, I think, very significant progress over the past year in the development of M+, including the building of a team, the building of the collection, building the museum building, as well as raising public awareness through a number of the inventive pre-opening programs that we've undertaken, including inflation, the M+ building exhibition, and in particular the joint collaboration with the Arts Development Council of responsibility for the last Venice Biennale with the Artist League kit, and the recently announced collaboration with the ADC for the next Venice Biennale next year. I think one of the issues that we're very aware of is that M+ is a new type of museum of contemporary visual culture, unlike anything seen in Hong Kong before, particularly in the not-for-profit sector. We realise it takes time and a very conscious effort to educate and communicate to the public what a visual culture museum is and how such a museum works. This is not an easy task, but it is definitely a very important part of the journey that we would go through going forward. I'm very pleased today to be able to have the M+ director, Lars Netver, who's led the team and built the team so that we now have some 48 people now working on the development of the museum, the development of the collection. I think we're doing a pretty good job in terms of moving it forward on a lot of fronts, and that's clearly one of the challenges of this project. I think we're bringing the best practice from all over the world to ensure that M+ will be a museum that Hong Kong is rightly proud of. And I'm now going to hand over to Dr. Netver to bring you up to date on all of the aspects, including the building part of the project and any of the areas that you may want to question us specifically on. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anything from the administration?
Thank you, Michael, also for this introduction. Well, some of you may have been on this committee for 3 years or more. And for me, it's the fourth time I have the privilege to sit here and report on the development of M+. Just in general, I must say that everything is developing according to plan, timely, and actually without any major hiccups, which is quite wonderful to be able to report. I've always said that we're basically doing four things. We are building a team that develops ideas, etc., and from these ideas you then start building a collection, which we have come quite far with. And once the collection sort of is taking shape, we start developing the ideas of what sort of building do we need for the collection. And then the fourth strand is, of course, to develop audiences and the relationship with audiences. And this is what we've been doing for the last 3.5 years. For the period there's been a team on board, and we continue. In the past years, the district, WKCDA and M+ has made significant progress in a number of areas, including collection and acquisition, museum facilities, governance structure, capacity building, audience building, as well as stakeholder engagement. And I will talk to you about these things. When it comes to the collection, just to look at some figures around it. As of June, 30th of June 2014, M+ has acquired, and here I exclude the major acquisition through purchase and mainly donation of the M+ SIG collection. We have acquired around 920 works on top of that. In terms of value, geographical distribution of these acquisitions, it's quite balanced in terms of its relationship between Hong Kong, China, other parts of Asia, Chinese diaspora, and overseas beyond Asia. And if you look at the number of works from Hong Kong, it's a bit over 50% of the total number of works purchased since 2012, when we started making the acquisitions. It's not yet 2 years ago when the acquisition process started. The roadmaps, and these are really the maps that define the directions to go, the order to take things, where to go first, and sort of strategies for acquisition. The roadmaps for different collection areas, such as ink art, for example, design, the Greater Asia collection, have been presented to the Interim Acquisition Committee already last year. And M+ is currently conducting an in-depth research and developing the strategy for the Hong Kong visual culture, and a sort of deepened strategy, I should say. There is already a strategy in place, and for moving image. And the latter, actually, the roadmap for that was presented as late as yesterday to the Interim Acquisition Committee. This committee held 7 meetings during the financial year of 2013-14. And looking at the period from the 1st of April 2013 until the 30th of June, so very recently, 2014, acquisitions by purchase was totaling 352 works of visual culture. So clearly it's not only art, it's design, it's architecture, it's moving image material as well. That's important to remember. And out of these, 79 were from Hong Kong. Now, I think something that is often forgotten and not commented on much, but which is quite remarkable and a sign of extraordinary support for the M+ project, is the interest M+ has attracted from major artists, collectors, architects and designers who have made various important donations, including, for example, the generous donation of 37 important works of Chinese contemporary art, mainly installations, very substantial installations, from Mr. Guan Yi, who is one of the most important art collectors in China. The donation also, I should mention the donation of the work Guards Kissing by Tino Segal, who's one of the major international artists at the time, from Mr. Alan Lau, who's an avid collector of contemporary art here in Hong Kong. We had a quite extraordinary anonymous donation to support the acquisition of Asian Field by Anthony Gormley. And we had recently a cash donation, which has been written about quite a bit in the newspaper, in the name of the Brown Family Annual Acquisition Fund for acquiring artworks at Art Basel, Hong Kong in the coming 10 years. So at the 30th of June 2014, M+ has received 2,029 artworks and other items of design, architecture, moving image from 51 different donors. Artists, Hong Kong artists, artists overseas, collectors, architects, designers, and so forth. And as well as the two donations, cash donations, with a value of totaling Hong Kong dollars 1,350,350,000 Hong Kong dollars. And I should say that in the same period of time, we have made purchases for about 325 million Hong Kong dollars. So we have received donations of a value of more than 1 billion more than we have purchased for, and I think that's worth noting. Of course, we will continue our effort in securing more donations, and there are very good signs that we will get those. And actually, we had an informal confirmation of a large cash donation yesterday, but it's too early to announce it publicly in detail. To underline its commitment to transparency, WKSDA has published the M+ acquisition policy, which was developed based on the policies of major museums in the United States, America, Canada, as well as Australia, and in consultation with the Independent Commission Against Corruption. The approving procedures and limits are laid down in the policy, and they are comparable to those of many major international museums. As a matter of fact, both the policy and the procedures are, I would say, more extensive and firmer than in most international museums. For instance, the M+ needs to seek approval from the WKSDA board before making major acquisitions. And then, depending on the price value of the proposed acquisition, the M+ acquisition policy sets out different acquisition approval authorities, which comprise members of strong arts and cultural background. And I think this is really important, that decisions about acquisitions are made by people who have a knowledge in the field, that you don't hand it over to people who don't know much about the field. In addition, the complete list of the M+ SIG collection, as well as other recent acquisitions and donations, have been uploaded on the WKSDA official website for public information. To move over to the museum building, and you may remember that for M+, it's an important reminder always to say that the museum should not be confused with the building. The museum is really a content and its relationship to its audiences. And the building is a tool for this relationship. It's a tool to bridge the gap, to create this meeting between the content, the artworks, the design works, the architecture models, and the public. But it's not the same as the museum. So in a sense, you can say that M+ exists as a museum already, because besides the building, everything else is in place that you can compare with a sort of mid-sized museum. We have an excellent team, we have a growing collection, we have an exhibition program, we have a relationship to our audiences on a very regular basis, just like museums do. The museum, the building is missing. I'd like, though, to say a few words about the building, because it is important and it is a big investment as well, and it is moving forward very well. As members may remember, the winning design for the M+ building the design competition to start with was won about a year ago by the Swiss architect firm Herzog and de Meuron in joint venture with Hong Kong-based TFP Farrells and Uwe Arup and Partners Hong Kong, and it's called the HDM joint venture. And they were selected from a short list of an international competition of which with 6 of the world's leading architecture firms participated, 5 of which at the present have won the Pritzker Prize, the equivalent of the Nobel Prize for an architect. So it was from quite an extraordinary team they were selected. The winning design for the M+ building is, and I will show some images, is made up of basically 2 slabs. A horizontal slab and a vertical slab. Slab is an ugly word actually, but pieces of a building. And in general you can say that the horizontal slab has a number of functions. It starts underground already, and where you have public facilities, you have an entrance from the park, you come to the extraordinary space called the Found Space, which is actually as an excavation of the Airport Express tunnel, which gives us a phenomenal and unusual type of space in the underground. But also it houses, for example, the Moving Image Center, which is a totally unique aspect of the museum. And you can enter it already straight from the park and from the park promenade.
Can you be brief and precise because time is running out? We need to have time to ask questions.
Next floor is a public plaza for the public, and that's the main entrance floor, but also with education facilities. And the next floor is the main exhibition space. The vertical part has the research center, library, archive, accessible to the public. It has curatorial research center. It has 3 floors on the top that are restaurants for RDE simply. And this building, because there were questions about this, there has been earlier on, is the conservation storage facility, which is actually part of the same building, and it's attached underground to the museum and houses our storage with thousands of works and also the conservation facilities. This is another view from the sea showing, I can highlight here the education center, which is an extraordinary feature in the building. And of course you can also see the wonderful large roof terrace, which has public access. It's actually open public space. And yet another view that shows the sort of easy access, openness into the building, which is from the Artist Square into the museum building, and how easily accessed it is. Moving on, I should say that the M+ Design Consultancy Services commenced in September 2013, so it's about 10 months ago. Detailed design, we've gone through conceptual design or schematic design, and detailed design is progressing well and is due for completion in December 2014. Now, as the Finance Committee of the Legislative Council has not been able to consider the funding application of the advanced public infrastructure works in the M+ portion of the integrated basement as scheduled for July 2014 for last week, it is anticipated, unfortunately I must say, that the completion date, the OP, for M+ will be revised from the end of 2017 to the first half of 2018. At the same time, though, the advanced works for M+ commenced on the 1st of April 2014 and is expected to be completed in August 2014. Also, in keeping with WKCD's prudent financial management, regular reviews are being undertaken to monitor the estimated construction cost. Value engineering studies, etc., has constantly been going on and will continue to form a part of the ongoing design management and cost control activities. And at the present, but of course that is just at the present, we are, according to the quantity surveyors, on budget. Another important aspect is the governance structure. Following the recommendations of the Consultative Committee of the Core Arts and Culture Facilities of the WKSDA, as well as the report to them from the Museum Advisory Group in 2006, WKSDA has studied the governance structure of major museums overseas to consider how the future M+ should be managed. For the purposes of removing legal ambiguity in the eyes of the public dealing with the museum, administrative transparency, accountability and efficiency, and of maximizing public perception of the artistic freedom and curatorial independence of M+, the governance of M+ would be implemented through the establishment of a wholly owned subsidiary company under WKSDA as a separate legal entity. Under the WKSDA, I should underline. Under this model, the WKSDA board will be the body setting overall policies for the governance of WKSDA, including M+, and the overall strategic direction for the WKSDA, while the new M+ board for the wholly owned subsidiary shall develop the mandate, mission, vision and operating strategies for M+. M+ would retain control over its museological and curatorial policies, and the M+ board would hold the authority to approve the daily work and decisions within defined levels. This would allow for more effective and streamlined operations of the museum. M+ management and governance need to be compliant with the policies of WKSDA, and WKSDA is currently working out further details to implement the governance structure. Capacity building. Of course, building the team has been a central and a totally essential aspect of creating M+. And we have gradually been building up our professional expertise in different areas, including, of course, curatorial practice, collection management, art education, research, and technical areas, especially the back-of-house areas. Currently, the recruitment focus is on curatorial and collection management areas. This is to ensure that M+ will have the requisite curatorial expertise in each of the 4 main visual culture areas and the expertise in managing the ever-expanding M+ collection, of course. The focus will also slowly shift towards the areas of audience development, digital program, publications, membership and building management. M+ currently has a total of, actually we're around moving rapidly towards 40 members of staff, with 18 in the curatorial area, actually 19 as of yesterday. 6 in the collection management, 1 in the building area, and the rest are executive or administrative staff. And of the now 19 curatorial staff, 10 are actually young curators from Hong Kong. They're not the only curators from Hong Kong, but that shows that it's really possible to recruit young, talented, well-educated, but maybe in some cases unexperienced curators in Hong Kong who can grow with the organization.
Please be brief and precise. We're really running out of time.
We're interested in this. Internship and volunteer programs to meet the increased demand for artistic and administrative talents, as well as curatorial, art education and back-of-house staff. M+ has launched different internship and volunteer programs. All in all, I think we've had around 20 interns over time, and some of them are now coming into the team also. And the docent volunteer program was launched last year. We had about 800 applications for it. We have at the current 47 who are in an education program with us, and it's anticipated that it will continue in the coming years. Audience building. Of course, the main strategy for building audiences is really by having a public program, by showing, by having people participate. And the main vehicle there are the exhibitions we make, the mobile M+ exhibitions, and the exhibition as we did last year in Venice, where we organized together with ADC the presentation of a Venice artist, Lee Kitt, and the exhibition UU, which had an extraordinarily good reception in Venice and internationally. An exhibition that later came back in an expanded version to Hong Kong under the title You. in the cattle depot. Other exhibitions that have been hugely successful is Building M+, the museum and architecture collection, which presented the architecture competition, where we are at this stage in the design of the M+ building, and also our growing architecture collection. And it was an exhibition that attracted more than 20,000 visitors out in artistry. Other exhibitions are, as I mentioned, the Lee Kit exhibition and the Mobile M+ neonscience.hk, which was an interactive online exhibition dedicated to exploring, mapping and documenting Hong Kong's neon signs. And since there has been questions about where popular culture went in our program, this is a good example of how we work with popular culture. To evaluate the outcome of UU...
I only give you 1 more minute and no more. Just 1 more minute.
We have, ADC has come back and said that they invite us to do the next exhibition in Venice as well, in collaboration with them. M+ has accepted the invitation, and a press announcement was made on the 26th of June 2014, and the artist was announced 10 days ago, and it's Sang King-Hwa from Hong Kong, of course. We also did a very successful exhibition at the Hong Kong Art Basel, and on top of that I can report about M+ Matters, very, very successful, always sold out programs of public talks and workshops. And finally, stakeholder engagements, where we regularly do the public forums that are also very popular and well visited, where we update the public in a similar way as we've done now, but at greater length about how the project is developing. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. You have spent over 25 minutes. Members who have enrolled, Helena Wong, Yu Siu Wing, the Vice Chairman, Chen Yunhan, Sid Ho and Claudia Mo. I'll be the last. 4 minutes each, questions and answers together. We'll end this part at 12. I have 2 questions concerning M+. Now we hope that it can have a Hong Kong perspective, Hong Kong style, Hong Kong's visual arts, culture and moving images. Now the 5th point, moving images and Hong Kong visual arts culture. We hope that M+ is not just like another international museum which we visit overseas. We don't want to see M+ just like another museum which we've seen overseas. We want it to have local characteristics. When you go into it, we feel that this is our visual culture. It is our visual culture. It is our local culture. So local visual culture and local visual history are the things I hope that can be highlighted in your collection and also in your acquisition process. Otherwise, it will not be a local visual culture museum. It would only be something foreign. Many say Hong Kong is a capital for protest marches, say 1st of July, 1st of January, or maybe 1st of October. There are mass activities, marches, demonstrations. This is a very important part of local culture and also local visual culture. The images, the pictures, the videos. Do you have any intention to start a collection on that, or do you would you ask NGOs to donate these materials, and would you consider an exhibition on this? And also, the next point is on governance, paragraphs 15 and 16.
It is said there will be a wholly owned subsidiary to look after M+, and you're going to have M+ board, but you doesn't tell us how many people will on the board, what kind of composition is it going to be, what about representation, how many people who are familiar with Hong Kong visual culture will be sitting on the board. Under this new structure, the M+ board will be responsible for the vision, mandate, mission, vision. Well, these are very broad terms. Shouldn't there be clear directives for the WKCDA? And we're now asking the new board to do this. It's not possible that they are going to go for a different direction than that of the WKCDA. Who would like to take this question? These questions? Mr. Lynch or?
So, yeah, no, I'm happy to answer. To start with, of course, I completely agree that M+ should not be like any museum overseas. It should definitely be unique to Hong Kong, and there's no point in creating it otherwise. And actually, people would have no reason to go there from overseas, even if it's the same as they can get anywhere else. So clearly, it's meant to reflect Hong Kong, but also, and that's the distinction that I think we're developing together with the Hong Kong Museum of Art and the Heritage Museum. We have an international perspective. We look at the world also from a Hong Kong perspective, but it will be totally rooted in Hong Kong. And of course, but it's not only, and that was outlined already in the Museum Advisory Group's paper in 2006, it's not only a museum about Hong Kong, because we have two museums, major museums, that do that. But definitely, and everyone I think who's seen what we've done, read about what we're doing, read our books and so forth, is clear, I think, are convinced that this is really rooted in Hong Kong. So I totally agree with your point there. In terms of documentary material, actually the international or the Interim Acquisition Committee, in the discussion about the roadmap for the moving image material, one thing that was brought up was exactly documentary material, documentary films. One of the members on the committee is Nansen Shi, who's well known to us all, I think, and she really encouraged also the inclusion of important documentary material and documentary films into the moving image scenario. So it's not only about movies or just about, it's really a wide area, and we should look at the whole wide area, while of course remembering that the quality of the work, the height of the work is there. We're not a cultural, what shall I say, a general cultural history museum. We are after all a visual culture museum.
Mr. Yu Si-wing. I have a question about paragraph 11. It said that because the Finance Committee of this Council could not be completed in time, and therefore the completion date of M+ will be delayed for, say, 6 months. But so far we don't know when the approval will be given. So have you estimated the kind of additional cost if the project is delayed for a month and for a longer period? And what are you going to do in terms of funding the additional cost? Second, about audience building. We have seen some mobile platforms at different locations, different activities organized by the M+, and you even participated in overseas programs. And I would like to know, so far, how many people have participated in these activities? And among the audience, what is the ratio between local and overseas participants in the audience? And what is your program of promoting M+ to overseas audience?
Clearly we are concerned in regard to the delay issues, the issues of delays in consideration by the public Infrastructure Committee is incredibly important, not just to M+, but to all of the other parts of this project. And clearly we are anxious that those decisions are expedited as soon as is possible. At this point we cannot be definitive. As you said, we don't know when, as you don't know when those decisions are going to be made, but clearly what we're trying to be is as transparent as possible in terms of the work. There are certain pieces of the work that we are able to continue forward on once the designs are complete. We have real concerns about any delays in terms of cost escalation in Hong Kong, and the fact the longer these projects go, the more expensive they're likely to be. In regard to the specifics around M+, if we can resolve the outstanding issue in regard to public infrastructure, then we're reasonably secure in the idea that we will be able to ensure OP by sometime early to mid-18. And then, that's going to be something we'll be spending an intense amount of time looking at over the course of the summer. I'll ask Dr. Nitford to just respond on the overseas programs and the broader activity.
Okay.
Now it's on. In terms of audiences, I don't have the total figure, but we can say that inflation attracted a bit over 150,000 visitors, the architecture exhibition about 20,000, other exhibitions are around 10 to 15, 20,000 visitors. And of course, then we have the Neon Science project, which attracted a couple of 100,000 unique visits, actually 300,000, I think it was, roughly, unique visits to the site, and a lot of also viewing of YouTube film of making neon signs, and more than 4,000 individuals submitted images of neon signs, their favorite neon signs in Hong Kong. So, I mean, if you summarize all these people, those who went physically there, we are in the figures over 200,000, and if we add, of course, a digital presence, it's more. In terms of background, most of them are clearly who go to the exhibitions. I mean, we have an overwhelming presence of Hong Kong people, simply. At the same time, I think it's important to underline that M+ status and standing internationally is extraordinary, and we have lots of requests for visits who wants to come and visit the museum because they believe that we're fully operational and up and running because of the reporting on what we're doing in the international media. And we have to disappoint people and say, sorry, you can come to our office, but there is no museum to look at yet. And we don't happen to have a project up and running at the present.
Okay.
Thank you.
Deputy Chairman, sorry, Chairman. Maybe we can be given some statistics. For example, the likely cause if there's a delay on a monthly basis. Deputy Chairman, I think we should say something about the importance and the popularity of M+ in the international artistic community, and we should be glad about this because that's the purpose of constructing the WKCDA, that we want Hong Kong to be a bright spot in the international artistic community, and I believe we are now moving in that direction. And on the question of nurturing local visual artists, and in respect of the curatorial practice of M+, please tell us more about your plan. I believe in many Hong Kong visual artists would like to make use of M+ as a platform to project themselves in the international artistic scene. So first of all, this question is about the concrete plans you have got in training and nurturing local visual artists. And the second question is about the setting up of a wholly owned subsidiary to support the operation of M+. Is it that the WKCDA would adopt this same approach on other venues, other facilities? Is this one of the means to ensure the accountability? Is it going to be applied to other facilities?
It doesn't presuppose that we will have independent governance for each venue, and clearly that's an issue that we will be considering. But the important issue for M+, and that's why this decision has been discussed for many years, is that the sense of independence, curatorial independence, the ability to be able to raise funds to contribute to the collection, in addition to the support from government, will be clearly much more advantaged by the subsidiary model. Clearly having a board that is focused on M+ rather than on all of the other issues, but with a direct relationship to West Kowloon, will be, I think, an important step in the evolution. It will put M+ on a similar basis with other major contemporary art museums around the world, and we see that as a very important step forward. In regard to the other venues, we're looking at both the timing issues as to when venues are going to be completed, and then what are the best governance and managerial models for taking it forward. But the only one that is immediately relevant to us alongside M+ is the ZSHU model, which the Performing Arts Committee and the board will be considering over the coming months. And I might ask Lars to just comment on your first point.
May I follow up on this answer? Who is going to be the chairman of this board of the subsidiary body?
Their decisions made by the board and the government. The government appoints the members of the West Kowloon board, and clearly we don't have any say in those decisions.
How about nurturing local artists, Dr. Lee?
Well, it's not directly the task of a museum, of course, to sort of educate artists. That is done by universities and the art schools, naturally. I think the role that a museum plays is already when you are in education, you offer the students food for thought, things to look at. They get to know other artists and other developments and other movements. So that's the basis for it, to stimulate them and inspire them and so forth. The next step is, of course, and I think that's more what you're thinking of, is, of course, to what extent will we be a platform for Hong Kong artists. Of course, we will not be a platform for all Hong Kong artists. That is impossible, and I don't think that's the task for us. But we will clearly be a platform for Hong Kong artists, just as any national museum and any other part of the world would be a platform for its artists, but also for bringing artists from other parts of the world to Hong Kong for inspiration and excitement for the wider public and so forth. So I think that M+ could be a place where, that you will be aiming at as an artist. It doesn't mean that you have to be old and have worked for 30, 40 years before you get a chance. But it's for the top talents, of course, of Hong Kong. And it's a great chance to make Hong Kong artists known to the wider public. We have seen from last year in Venice that if it's done right, and if it's done with sort of the right backing, a Hong Kong artist who is relatively unknown beforehand can become an international name by just having the right backing and the right platform. And that's what we hope to provide by M+.
Okay. 多謝你。陳婉嫻。
Ms. Chen Yunhan.
Sorry, I haven't heard you, Chairman. I also want to follow up this question. With regard to the setting up of a wholly owned subsidiary entity or company, my question is why? Why you need it? Now, your explanation is that you make it more flexible, you make it to have a wider contact. Does it mean that your current structure is not adequate? If these are the reasons, then would there be a CG Center company, a concert hall center, concert hall subsidiary company? Would they be independent domains in the future? We do need to have contacts with overseas counterparts. We do need to nurture talents, but that's not the ground for setting up a wholly owned subsidiary. The wholly owned subsidiaries may become independent domains, and how can the HAB deal with them? I think the Bureau should answer my question. What do you think about this idea? How do you control these subsidiary companies in the future? Thank you, Chairman. We agree with this proposal. This is to be in line with international practice. Now, although the company is a wholly owned subsidiary company, its business plan, its manpower resource plan, and other major plans have to seek the approval of the WKCDA board. Financial, IT, manpower, and all other overall policies have to comply with that of the WKCDA. There will be adequate supervision. Isn't the WKCDA an independent company, and why there is another subsidiary company wholly owned but wholly independent? So the subsidiary is under the WKCDA. Now, if they need money, will they go to the FC, the Finance Committee again, or do they just go to the WKCDA and get all the resources and they don't need to come to us? This is my question, Mr. Chairman. Okay, please answer us. Can you answer my question?
The question was addressed to HAB. You want to address the question?
Yes, I asked the Bureau. Whether we do or not object to the setting up of a wholly owned subsidiary company. Then you answer Ms. Chan's question. How can you supervise these companies? Will they be independent domains? Will they cut the ground under us? The budget of M+ will have to be approved by the WKCDA board. And Chairman, according to her answer, then there is no need to have a wholly owned subsidiary company. And then you control them. They are then what's the point of having a wholly owned subsidiary company if they are under your full control? Well, I think outsiders, those who are not in the trade, should not manage those who are in the trade. My concern is they will become independent domains, and my concern is that you will set up another CG company and then a concert hall company. And then when there is any problem, they will say they are wholly owned subsidiaries. It's their problem, not us.
Already, the issue is M+ is a particular instance. I think you asked us a question at our last meeting about why a respected Hong Kong philanthropist had given $100 million to the Asia Society and the answer was because he perceived it to be an independent institution. Clearly, the fundraising capacity of M+ is a specific issue in being able to build the collection and to build the philanthropic support in addition to the support that they get through the business planning process. But as I have said, we are not looking at the individual venues, individual theatres or individual parts of the site having their own governance arrangements. And it is absolutely clear from the existing structure and the existing ordinance that the West Kowloon Cultural Authority is there to be able to deal with those issues in regard to the other venues. There is no question of, in this situation, of people being able to operate independently.
Chairman,
to listen to our answers today.
Well, I know that. Ms. Chan, your time is up. But you have taken up my time, Mr. Chairman. I've already given you a lot more time. Your time is up. Now, if you delegate power to them, that's okay. But why they will become wholly independent? In the future, they may just sell all the collections. Now, at the start.
Not possible for...
I haven't asked you to speak. I haven't given you the floor. well, please speak only after I've told you to do so. Now, can the administration drop a paper to answer the questions raised by Ms. Chen and other members? You say that not all other institutions or not other institutions will run like this way, and only M+ will be run like this way. So what's the difference? You need to explain that. Drop a paper and answer our question. Sit home. I'd like to thank the WKCDA for being able to obtain so many donations, both in kind and in cash. I'd like to thank you for your good efforts. The second point is on M+. As for the building design, we have seen it. I think the content, or rather the internal part of the museum is more important. It has to be flexible so that you can have different types of exhibitions and you can adjust your galleries to different types of exhibitions. And when people enter, when the audience enter the museum, what should be the route? How should it be? How should the route be designed so as to cause a kind of interaction between the audience and the exhibits? They are very important. So please let us see your internal design and not just the appearance. Ms. Wong asked for old Hong Kong moving images so that Hong Kong local people can appreciate, or the visitors can appreciate local culture. We've heard that Nansen Sea is involved. She will help in terms of movies. I think in the old movies, there were a lot of shots about old Hong Kong streetscape. There is a lot of editing will have to be done, and I hope M+ can help. And finally, on governance structure, the starting point is to remove the uncertainty, to remove legal ambiguity in the eyes of people dealing with the museum. Who are they? And what sort of legal ambiguity is there? We want to know the reason before we look into the solution and see whether the solution is most effective. Chairman, with the remaining 1 minute, I want to give the floor to Mr. Lynch to explain.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I guess the issue of the idea of the importance of being able for the museum to be able to run a program, to be able to pick up and take exhibitions to other museums, for other museums to bring exhibitions to this museum is an important part of the business of contemporary art museums. The importance of independence of both curatorial direction is an important part of it, but I think as important in terms of the proposed governance structure is the idea that the outside world, the people who want to support the museum in either donating works to the museum, donating money to the museum, that they want to see that it is a museum and that it operates on the same basis that other museums operate around the world. And it's not a private museum, it's a not-for-profit institution. It clearly needs, and it is the only visual arts organisation within West Kowloon, so the justification for it having a different governance structure than the 15 theatres in West Kowloon and a range of the other facilities has, I think, been strongly argued over the last 7 or 8 years. Pre the establishment of West Kowloon, these issues have been canvassed, they've come out of the Hong Kong visual arts community, and I think there is a strong, in principle, support for establishing this museum on a different basis to the existing not-for-profit government institutions in Hong Kong. And we see significant benefits from that structural situation, while recognising that there is still a very close relationship between M+ and the rest of the West Kowloon board, the West Kowloon organisation, and is a critical part of the West Kowloon site.
OK, thank you.
Thank you. Claudia Mo. Thank you, Chairman.
And our concern about M+ being an independent institution. Is it going to become...
Could I clarify? Actually clearly understand, bearing in mind the issues that we have continually discussed, I would be glad...
Mr. Lynch,
Let the member ask a question before you answer. Please do not dialogue among yourselves.
Become a little empire of its own. What about funding applications in the future? As the chairman was asking earlier, would it need to go through a LegCo at all? You would only come under the authority, right? So we're not too sure about the entire setup. That's the problem. I'll give you plenty of time to reply to this question. And my number 2 question is, looking at that particular slide, view from M+ view from the park. It doesn't look very impressive, I have to say. Maybe, well, I'm not an artist in any way, but then from a layman viewpoint, I was actually looking forward to some sort of landmark. And I was particularly almost baffled by the design that it actually sits right in front of a building behind. Is that what it's about? I thought that's an architectural crime. Almost. What's that about? Could you tell us more? 2 questions, thanks.
To your second question, no, we sit on a 40-hectare site in front of some of the less attractive and less impressive architectural offerings in Hong Kong, and no, that's the reality of life. No, I don't think we can take responsibility for what's been built around the rest of the West Kowloon site. I disagree with you in principle, and we've clearly argued the merits. No, we've gone through competitions. We've had the best architects in the world contribute their designs.
Chairman, the design is just like a box. It is not very impressive. Mr. Lynch, please let her finish first. Have you finished your question? Mr. Lynch, please.
No, I think we are, and clearly the response from Hong Kong, from the rest of the world to the winning design and the proposal as the design has developed is very positive. Clearly, I guess plenty of people, I know members of the committee have voiced their views about that. We will robustly engage with you on why this decision was made. So on that part of it, I guess we just have to agree to differ with the committee. In regard to independent, there is the idea of the ongoing locus of this committee, whether it be on M+ or on any other of the parts of the West Kowloon project, is very clear. We would like this committee to assist us in being able to move forward some of the things that particularly at the moment endanger the progress on the project, but it doesn't matter what the appropriate governance arrangements that are decided for M+ and for the rest of the site, it will still be under the scrutiny of the LegCo, and if this committee continues, we assume of this committee. And in terms of the funding proposals and the funding base, some of the money will come from the West Kowloon Authority in the formal process of submitting a business plan and being approved by the West Kowloon Board, which is then comes to the LegCo. Clearly what we are also trying to do is to diversify the funding base, to be able to encourage collections, to be able to encourage philanthropy and other support, which ensures that the citizens of Hong Kong are paying less for the future of the project, and we are maximising the possibilities of other support.
好多謝你嚇，咁啊最後我就有啲問題。
Thank you. Lastly, it's my turn. I think you don't need to read out the entire paper. The papers have already been sent to members of this committee. You use up 25 minutes of your time. I tend to agree with Ms. Claudia Mo. Well, I went to your exhibition. You didn't quite explain clearly why out of the 5 you chose this one and what does it represent. People in Hong Kong and people from outside Hong Kong will ask this question, what's this about? What does it represent? They just see a big building like a screen or a TV screen or the inverted sign of Typhoon Signal Number 3. It used to be a budget of 4.7 billion. Now it's 5 billion plus. So it's over $50,000 per square foot. You spend so much on this, but we are not clear about the contents, what it does represent. We are disappointed, in other words. And also in terms of software and acquisition, you have to tell us the position you take for M+. Globally, in the Asian region, you have to come up with a position first, and then you go for acquisitions and various means to be employed. At this time, you have explained that it's going to be taken up by the wholly owned subsidiary company. Well, I don't think that would do. As some members have suggested, you should have already set the direction. If not, what are you doing now? If you can't say this is left to a future body. You have acquired a lot of artworks, or when you accept donations, you must have done it in line of your overall direction, overall strategy. I don't think you should just accept donations when someone is willing to give you donations. You have to clearly explain the policy behind all these activities. And as some members have said, is it necessary to set up a wholly owned subsidiary company for M+, and not for any other facilities or venues? So 3 questions. I hope you can give us something in writing to explain, to facilitate future discussion. Mr. Link?
With regard to your third part of your question, as I've said repeatedly today, we have not, the nature of a major museum on which we spend $5 billion has different requirements than the individual theatres that we're building on the other parts of the site. That's part of the justification in terms of what we're talking about with the governance model. Clearly, I don't entirely understand your comments in regard to the collection. There is an acquisition policy which is publicly available. We have provided information on all of the acquisitions that we've made, both to this committee and online and in various other forms and responses. And that's, we understand the ongoing need to explain what's in the collection and how the collection's done. Any donation to the collection goes through the same acquisition policy as though we were buying it. They clearly have to comply with the policy of the acquisition policy of the museum. And if someone wanted to donate the history of...
如果你唔明白咧，我會 black and white。
Well, if you don't understand my questions, I'm going to put my questions in black and white.
Just don't think you're allowing me an opportunity to answer your question. And in regard to your first question, I think the issue, the reality of life is that more than a year ago the government announced the winner of the competition for M+, announced the budget. We are in line with the budget, we are in line with the design process, and from that point of view...
I understand that. What I'm going to do is to repeat my questions in writing. I think we will not waste any more time on this just now. We have to move on to the next one, which is equally important, and that is the update on the park development, design, use, and management. We're going to spend some 15 minutes on that. Who would give us an introduction?
Clearly, the park is probably the most anticipated facility of the West Kowloon Cultural District. You are well aware, as members of the committee, of the decisions that were made last year when some of the changes were outlined by the chairman in June last year. We clearly see the park as not only a major green space in the heart of the city, but a very important part of what we're trying to do to inspire, promote and encourage cultural pursuits for all. And we've strongly reiterated the issue of the park, as all of West Kowloon, will be a place for everyone. As we set out in our discussion paper, we've been moving very quickly on a number of fronts. In February this year, we appointed the park design team, and that park design team is comprised of Dennis Lau and Ung Chun Man architects, and ACLA from Hong Kong, and Westgate from Rotterdam in the Netherlands, one of the world's leading park designers. And today we have Martin Biwenga from Westgate and Chung Kwong Wing from Dennis Law to be able to take you through where that design now is, and in terms of the key issues that have been raised by members of the committee over, I think I would say, over the last 2 years. On park use and management, as we mentioned to members at the June meeting, we have just completed the engagement exercise led by the consultation panel to collect public views on how the park should operate. That exercise is now completed, and we had shared with members some of the preliminary findings. We also, beginning now as we move towards the resolution of the park, we now are talking about how the park is going to be managed and the general framework of the park bylaws. And we're very clear, interested in hearing the views of members once we've been able to outline that proposal today. I guess that's my starting point. I'd now like to introduce Martin Biwenga from Westgate to take us through a quick run through of what is a quite complex development. So I hope the committee will give us the opportunity to be able to take you through the key issues.
好啊，多歡迎你兩位出席啊，咁啊請你用15分。
Thank you. Please give an introduction in 15 minutes.
My name is we'll wait for the speaker.
我哋聽到㗎啦。
We can hear you.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Martin Biwenga, Director of Westgate Landscape Architects. We are designing and building parks around the world in New York, Madrid, Toronto, and now in Hong Kong, which is a very exciting opportunity for us. We work with a very strong local team for a good implementation of the design. And the park, today we would like to share with you the concept design for the park. In our view, the park will be a tranquil and sublime counterpoint to the intensity of Hong Kong City. A place where residents can go to relax and enjoy the green space and the waterfront. We think the park will be a magnet for people, for families, but also for visitors with the new Kowloon station. And interestingly, the park has a second identity, which is an active identity, because it can accommodate events, festivals, performances, but also food and art. Because the park is designed, of course, as being a part of the cultural district of Hong Kong. On the screen you can see the plan of the concept design with clearly the entrance to the West Kowloon crossing, and also of course on the right side here the M+ museum, the Artist Square, and the start of the avenue of the West Kowloon Cultural District. In the park, integrated in the design, are the two ventilation buildings that at the moment, of course, since the site is empty, are very prominent on the site, the ventilation building for the highway tunnel and the MRT. The backbone of the park is a pedestrian pathway that is basically an extension of the avenue from the future district of cultural district of West Kowloon, which continues across the Artist Square into the park, let's say descending down into the park, and being the major artery of the park for pedestrians, and let's say as an anchor point for cultural activities in the park. This is an impression we made from the cultural boulevard, an impression from M+, descending down into the park, giving visitors beautiful vistas through the park on the waterfront of Hong Kong, on the other side of Victoria Harbour. The park itself is an interesting hybrid of green space, of a green leisure space for local residents and for Hong Kong residents, combined with performance spaces, performance venues, exhibition spaces. Here on the top left you see the design for the art pavilion, which is located in the park, but also cafes and small restaurants in the park to make it a comfortable visit for the people. Next to the Cultural Boulevard, the second, of course, main attraction of the park is the accessibility to the waterfront. The park has a 1.2 kilometer public waterfront, a promenade that provides 270 degrees views to Victoria Harbour and Hong Kong Island and to the west. Very spectacular. This is something that is given to the site, and we are using it in the design. Especially the southern part of the waterfront promenade is widened to create a larger space to allow large groups of people to enjoy the beautiful view on Hong Kong Island. These are some, let's say, initial renderings from this space on the waterfront. It's a mix between a square and a lawn, providing access to the waterfront. And what is very important in design and important to understand is that since the park will be a mix of event spaces and park spaces, we think it's very important that if there's an event in the park, people can still use the rest of the park for leisure. So the park will not be shut down if there's an event. You can still use the park. And for that reason we introduced, especially on the southern edge, an elevated park edge. You can see that here in the section. So if there's an event on the waterfront, the users of the park can still enjoy the views over over Victoria Harbour. We think that's a very important element of the park design. This is an impression of that waterfront space with a wide pedestrian boulevard, a lawn with a cycle track running through it, and the edge, the double edge, where people can enjoy the waterfront in the shadow of the edge, but also on on the elevated level here, which is also a promenade with the park on top. The space between the Cultural Boulevard and the waterfront is a proper park that can accommodate cultural events and art events as an extension, as a natural extension of the West Kowloon Cultural District. We've accommodated different spaces in the park for small and larger events. One of the main areas for large events will be the big lawn, the light green space, which is an open space in the park that can accommodate more than 10,000 visitors for large-scale outdoor events. Of course, there's this space on the waterfront for events that use the magnificent views. In the heart of the park is a more intimate park area, of which we think that is a very interesting area for families and for local visitors. And of course, there is an area in the park which is adjacent to the M+ museum. It's a lawn that is sloping down gently sloping down into the park. We've tested the activities that have been organized by West Kowloon Cultural District in the past on the park design, and we are comfortable that these activities can take place in the future park. Some of the activities are large, attract a lot of people. Some activities are smaller, and the park can accommodate both type of cultural activities. In this rather technical plan, you can see the different exhibition spaces, the big lawn, the smaller lawn for more intimate events and intimate activities, the waterfront plaza event space, and the lawn related next to M+. And of course, in the northern part of the park, the temporary event space, which is already in place and is already used intensively. From the Cultural Boulevard, we've created different connections through the park, pedestrian connections to the waterfront. The connections are not only physical connections, but also, let's say, guide the views from the visitors to the waterfront. Here's an overview of the park with in the heart of the park, the Black Box Theater, with the cafes around it and the art pavilion adjacent to it. The art pavilion will be one of the first initiatives in the park. And scattered throughout the park are amenities like kiosks, cafes and dining places, and of course toilets, public toilets throughout the park to make it a comfortable visit. This is a view from the big lawn where we, let's say, simulated a festival. The festival is an outdoor stage that is related to the Black Box Theater, so it can utilize the facilities of the Black Box Theater. And the lawn is a place where people can sit on the grass but also enjoy the shadow of the surrounding tree lines. And the lawn basically borrows the view from M+ here in the back, and of course the West Kowloon Cultural District will develop its skyline in the back of this view. The small lawn is a much more intimate space with a intimate character, very much suitable for small exhibitions and for families to enjoy the park in a shaded condition. Of course, what is not part of the design but is a given from the site is that it is unprecedented in its spectacular view, and the design completely celebrates these views on the skyline. We have 270-degree views over the harbor. and especially the waterfront event space, let's say, celebrates the view on Victoria Harbour and Hong Kong Island. We've tested this space for different events, and it's a very flexible space that can accommodate different events. This is an important image because, of course, the M+ Museum is facing onto the park, and this is a view from the botanical garden in the park, where you see the lawn and the M+ Museum in the back. We think that, let's say, the art component of the park can be quite important in curating pieces for the park, public art displayed in the park, and we've pointed out different places where we think permanent or temporary art installations can be accommodated in the park and surprise and welcome the visitors to the park. Very important element of the park, and that has already been initiated by West Kowloon Cultural District, is a bicycle program. Along the waterfront, we've accommodated a bicycle route, a network that where visitors can cycle along the waterfront, and of course this route anticipates on future connections to the city of Kowloon. The botanical aspect of the park has two main ingredients. We think, and especially if you compare the design with the current situation where it's very empty and flat, it's very important to provide shading for the visitors because Hong Kong has a hot climate. So a large part of the trees that will be planted have a function of providing shadow, and the rest of the trees are very much there to experience the different seasons, so the autumn and the spring. So these are very much flowering trees, as you can see here on the slides. Along the main footpath in the park, we will have the trees to provide the shadow for the visitors, and we combine that with small pavilions, shading structures, as resting points along the route, and to give shadow and protect from rain. At the moment, since the site is a landfill, it's very flat, and what we've done is introduce topography on the site to create spectacular views over Victoria Harbour, to connect the park with the surrounding areas of M+, and also to manage rainwater in a sustainable and ecological way in the park. So, as a conclusion, we think that the concept design for the park is an interesting hybrid between a local park and that can accommodate events in the cultural district of West Kowloon. Thank you very much.
好，多謝你嚇，係。
Thank you very much. If you don't have anything to add, then I will open the floor to members. Gary Fan, the Vice Chairman, Mr. Tony Chair, and myself. 4 minutes each, questions and answers together. Chairman, I have several questions. If I'm not able to finish, then I'll wait for a second round. You may not have a second round. Pardon? You may not have a second round. Please be brief and concise. The park is a very important element. Now, I don't know if I've missed any point. Now, on the northwestern corner, there is also another big piece of lawn. It is part of the park. Is it because of office or other needs or plant nursery? It is not planned at the same time. Now, in fact, that part is also not small. So why can't that be grouped together in the plan? And in the park, the greening is maximized. There are 2 buildings which cannot be removed or relocated. This is the ventilation. These are the ventilation buildings of the MTR and the WHC. In your PowerPoint on page 15, its size seems to be, their sizes seem to be bigger than the actual situation as they are now. So can you minimize their footprint so that there can be more greening, or will you do vertical greening on these buildings or not? Or is it very futuristic in your, would that be futuristic in your design, just like Bauhaus design or something like that? Will you use bright colors or what? Will you do to integrate these buildings? West 8 has a lot of famous designs. You mentioned Governor Island Park in New York, or Lincoln Park, or the park in Seoul. In terms of special features or characteristics, can you give us more information? What are similar to the WKCD park, and what are unique to our park? In paper concerning the public submission, a contemporary approach, citizens co-ownership for a park that is truly ours. They mentioned a lot of citizen participation. How will that affect the drafting of the subsidiary legislation, which will be put before us very soon? How will you make the restriction? How will you minimize the restrictions? What views can be incorporated from that submission? Now, they even suggest allowing people to do fishing in the park. Would that be taken into account as well? 4 questions altogether.
With the first one, Mr. Fan, the site to the north of the park is the present temporary nursery, which will become a temporary park over the course of the coming year. We want to open that up for ongoing use. It is also the site for the major performance venue, and from that point of view we don't know the timetable or when that's likely to be resolved. And then those 2 buildings that one of them is the project site office for the whole of West Kowloon, where we have half of our staff working on that in that building on the next to the tunnel, and then the rest of that site is existing ongoing use that will keep operating. Ultimately, once those decisions are resolved, once the rest of the park is done, we'd be then looking at extending the park into that extra area. I might just ask Martin to make a quick comment on the issues you've raised about greening. We would very much prefer not to have the 2 existing structures there, but we have very little control over them. It is very difficult to even disguise them. We've tried to think of painting them, greening them, doing all sorts of things, but Martin may have a specific response to your question.
Yeah, the 2 buildings are, let's say, very prominent in the current site. Also, their architecture is very explicit, and of course, like you mentioned, the area around them, it's not only the buildings, but they also have service yards and EVA access. And we're talking to the 2 owners to minimize the impact of especially of the service yards. And let's say our approach to integrating these 2 buildings in the park is by hiding them as much as possible from the visitors by providing a green color around them with trees and planting. So especially when you're in the park, you will hardly notice the 2 buildings. Of course, if you are on the Hong Kong side and you look towards the park, because the buildings are so tall, you cannot miss them. When I compare the park to other designs, I think one of the similarities is that, and that's a general principle of landscape architecture, you try to create and to simulate nature by focusing, by guiding vistas, by creating distances.
Yes, I think time is up. I will give you time to answer that because there are similar questions.
Deputy Chairman, first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Martin Biwanga and West 8. From what I've heard in your introduction, well, this design can be conjures an image of those very good parks that I visited. I have a question, not actually for West 8, but a question about how the park is going to be managed. However pleasant and good-looking the park may be, if you manage the park in accordance with the bylaws of the Cultural and Leisure Services Department, then it's not going to work. Paragraph 6 of the paper talks about the vision and the mission, and also from paragraph 12 of the paper, we have some findings of the ongoing public consultation. So, with regard to the vision and mission, are you going to develop the vision and the mission further after some further elaboration and discussion? As they are rather straightforward and simple. Not that we shouldn't have simple vision and mission. I don't think we should we should draft the bylaws first. We should have the vision and mission first before we draft the bylaws. Because only by understanding what we want in terms of vision and mission, you know what kind of give and take you should make. And then you draft the management bylaws. And you know what to do, you know what not to do. So I agree that we should have the vision and mission set first. And then you proceed to the drafting of the bylaws. The question is, what kind of further public participation will there be for stakeholders, for the public, before you finalize the vision and mission here? And also I would like to know the timetable. When will the public opinion survey or public consultation be completed? When will there be a report on the findings? And then what would you do between the completion of the consultation and the submission of the bylaws to this council?
Have the report finalised by September, and then to be able to bring it back here as soon as possible. Clearly the ongoing work on vision mission has been very much part of the philosophy behind the development of the park, but we are also running those processes in parallel. And I think the important issue in regard to both address, I think I didn't address Gary Phan's question about fishing and some of the other issues. Clearly we are looking at encouraging as many uses, both cultural and leisure uses as we can. The view from the government and from ourselves has been light touch, clearly bylaws that enable us to ensure the best interests of public safety and security, recognise it's a big site. It has potentially areas of danger that we need to be able to manage. We have to be able to recognise the balance between the activities that take place that are organised by people or organised by us. But we're really looking at light touch in terms of the bylaws, and so I think it is very clear in terms of public response to date that people want to be able to do as many things as possible, to be able to do things not in an organised form, and I guess striking the balance both in terms of what we bring back to LegCo for discussion. I think it's been very clear, the view from LegCo over almost the 3 years I've been here, is that they want the park to be open to everybody. They want it to not be like necessarily other parks in Hong Kong, and clearly we're very much moving in that direction.
Okay, 多謝你，謝偉銓。
Thank you. Mr. Tony Chair. Well, of course, this park is important in the WKCD because it takes up a big chunk of the land in WKCD, and it should be accessible and enjoyed by the general public. The design stresses the combination of cultural activities and leisure activities. I would like to thank the design team for putting in so much effort. Other members like me may be concerned about a few things. First of all, that's the 2 ventilation buildings, and it's also close to the tunnel portal of the WHC. I hope you will take that into account in your design. You may do some enclosure to mitigate the visual impact. That's the minimum you should do. I hope more can be done. Chairman, apart from design, well, it's said that the park is for the public. So I'm also concerned about accessibility by pedestrians. Accessibility is important because the whole project of WKCD will last for many years, and there may be projects still going on when the park is open. So are you going to take this into account in planning for the other projects?
Clearly, accessibility, as I've mentioned before, is one of the 4 principles that underpin this project. We clearly recognise the importance of 23 hectares of public space within the 40 hectares. Clearly the basement project and being able to bring people in under the ground away from cars does throw up interesting issues in terms of how particularly the disabled and the elderly are able to get to the space. And we're looking, we think one of the real strong parts of the West 8 DLN proposal is that it enables us to have forms of transport for people who are mobility challenged to be able to get to every part of the park. I personally cannot get to parts of the park if I rely on walking to it at the present time. Clearly we're looking at making sure that every part of the park is available. If you're in a wheelchair, you walk with a stick, or you've got children in prams. That is a very fundamental importance of the cultural boulevard and the hard landscape relative to the soft landscape. Clearly also drop-off points, the ability of being able to move people around the site is a really fundamental principle, and we will that will be in the next stage of evolution of both the design and the practical moving forward on the park. We'll be providing that information to LegCo.
主席，我其實除咗
Apart from the design of the park, I'm also concerned about how people can get to the park. At present it's rather difficult because of the other projects that are going on in the vicinity. I believe when the park is open, there will still be some other projects going on. I'm not just talking about the park itself, but how you can gain access to the park from outside. If you go there, when I go there, I find it difficult to navigate the access. I hope that the design would just look beyond the park itself, and you should make sure that people can get to the park from outside. Ms. Chen Yunhan, two comments. I'm not going to come to a judgment on the design at this point. I would like to get a model. I can't make a judgment just looking at the plans. It's a big park. Mr. Chair, when I went to Chicago, I was in a concert. The turf was so big. It's just more than a hectare. And now in this area, we have this park. I hope we will be able to get some mock-up models. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's no good at this point. And I'm concerned about the bylaws that you're going to draft. Yes, we need bylaws. And early next year, we'll be told about the contents. I hope you consult us over the bylaws, because we have had some bad experience about park management. Where you have enclosures, you can have water fountains fence off, and also the chilling garden experience has left a very poor impression on users. We like to have a park that is accessible, that is convenient, and that makes people comfortable, like the Central Park in New York. I think management should be carefully planned. We shouldn't be too strict, we shouldn't be too lax, but our LCSD parks are not well managed, because there's so many fences, so many enclosures, as if they are telling you to keep off. So please tell us the bylaws, or consult us over the bylaws first. Well, look at Morse Park. Well, it's a joke. I won't go into details now. So before you finalize on the contents of your bylaw, please talk to us. I expect some consultation before you finalize the drafting of the bylaws in 2015. Well, I'm not saying that all parks are poorly managed. I think I have to be fair. There was a Japanese-style garden on the peak. Hong Kong Park is also a good place to visit. So there are good parks, good examples, but there are just many, many more not so good parks. So HAB, can you consult us first? And also from the WK, I would like to ask WKCD to give us some mock-up models. I don't want to just look at two-dimensional plans.
With the models, and also just to say that clearly, the evolving of both the park bylaws and the management philosophy will be important parts of the public communication. We will keep parts of the site open as we develop it, and it partly addresses Mr. Shea's question. Clearly, being able to keep that northern part of the site there from early in the piece will also give us a good way to be able to model in a smaller sense some of the issues once the more bigger section of the park is being completed. But happy to do so.
民政打鬥。
多謝主席。雖然即係立法會多數都會成立
HAB, I believe the council will certainly set up a subcommittee to scrutinize the bylaws, but we will certainly be coming back to consult you first before we submit the bylaws for your scrutiny. Ms. Sid Ho. Well, originally the entire site of WKCD would be for a park. That idea was quite popular. But now we are going to have some cultural facilities. Of course, we support that. A park in a cultural district should not be just like any other park. It should be there to promote culture and art. And the layout is as important as the management. Which people a very unique experience. Different parts of the park should be functional and separately functional, and we should not put in obstacles, big planters, and vegetation to prevent the gathering of large groups of people. I hope the open public space should allow different activities to take place. And the park should be developed in an organic way. And we have received from 20 groups and 200 individuals a submission, and I recommend those views in the submission. And they have pointed out, these people have pointed out that the LCSD bylaws have stifled freedom of a certain expression or activities. For example, no playing of musical instruments, no money should change hands in the park. I don't think that's the most liberal way of managing a park.
Now, when you look at the layout of the park and also draw up the bylaws, you need to incorporate the views of the public as wide as possible. You need to consult the ordinary public. You also need to consult the culture and art sector, what sort of activities they want to organize in the park, and how can you relax your control with regard to the management of the park. You really need to consult the culture and art sector. Thank you, Chairman. If I may respond to the point raised by Mr. Gary Fan and also Ms. Ho. Next time, please just answer the question just asked by the member. Otherwise, the other member will complain. Well, it's the same question. Now, yesterday, you gave us a letter. In fact, I met with the group responsible for this, and Ms. Ada Wong was present. She would help to invite the artists who signed the submission and to meet with our designer. Now we have the design drawings, and we invite them to give views, the artists to give views on how to make the best use of the park. Any other supplement? If not, then my view is this. This park is different from M+. Obviously, it has a clear position. The other one didn't. Now, the question is how the designer is going to achieve the vision and mission of the park as stated. Now, the introduction was in great detail, over 20-odd slides, but looking at the slides are not enough. As said by a member earlier, we would like to see a model or a mock-up that will be clearer. A lot of issues have not been resolved. Say accessibility is one issue. Are there EVAs? When there is an emergency, then the emergency vehicles can have access to any part of the park in order to provide help. Apart from being beautiful, it also has to be convenient. Now, this design is different from the original design of Foster. Originally, there were many trees, like a forest. But your present design is okay. You have your own idea, and I respect you. But have you considered the weather of Hong Kong and this location? We have typhoon. And after a typhoon, will all the trees fall down? And then you have to plant all the trees again. It's likely to happen. Just after a heavy rain yesterday, some trees fell. In your design, how can you deal with the weather in Hong Kong or the climate at large? I think the WKCDA and the designer should pay attention to this. And I hope that you can provide the model to us as early as possible. As for the bylaw, I hope that in the near future, the bylaw, the draft of the bylaw can be put before us for consideration so that we can discuss in detail the management of the park. I think it's a bit too vague. We don't have the bylaws in front of us. Anyways, I thank the designers for coming to us from a long way. Thank you for your briefing. Yes, what is your question? Just a simple question, Chairman. Just now, Ms. Chen asked for a model. Yes, I've already mentioned that. Yes, I just want to make one more point, Chairman. Now, you use CG. That's very common. I think the use of CG or computer simulation is very common, and that will be able to show the proportions. That will be very helpful to show the proportions that help us to visualize the actual design. I don't know whether they will make use of computer technique to assist us, and also the WKCDA will make use of this technology so that information can be given to us. That will be very helpful. Whether they give us or not, you have a good suggestion. And if you can have the model and also the computer simulation, 3D computer simulation, that will be very good. All right. Once again, thank you very much.
Could I just make one point in regard to the trees? Clearly, the discussion of climate and trees has been a really important part of developing both the design. But your point, is very important. The nursery that we put in some 18 months ago on the site has some 1,500 trees in it. And although they've grown substantially over the period of time, part of the purpose behind the nursery, which will become the temporary park over the course of the next year, was to test the typhoon resistance of those trees. Clearly we've had good response, and the view from West 8 and the DLN team is that most of the trees that we had put in the nursery will be able to be used and will be able to be planted as they've developed.
Thank you very much for coming. So much for this agenda item now. We will have to move on. Before we end our meeting, I still want to ask members of the subcommittee. We will write to the two panels and ask for the continuation of this subcommittee in the next session. Is there any objection? Okay, if there is none, then we'll write to the panels concerned. Thank you very much. Thank you.